They mocked her for marrying a janitor, until he revealed he owned the $47 million bank where he mopped floors. In
Awaken,
72
ancient
hours,
portal.
Thea Morvan went from public
Reveal what
humiliation
lies
to
within.
Queen of the Night. But first, she had to survive the wolves, the betrayal, and the truth that her husband had been choosing mortality for her. This is how a worthless accountant became the most powerful woman in Seattle. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's
No,
go back to the
please, don't
beginning,
leave me.
to the day everyone
I can't
laughed.
bear
The
this.
community center on East
Stay
Pike
with
Street smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sickly yellow glow across folding chairs arranged in crooked rows. 50 guests sat scattered like debris after a storm. Most of them weren't there to celebrate. They were there to watch Thea Morvan fall. She stood at the makeshift altar in a dress she'd bought at a consignment shop for $47. White silk, slightly yellowed at the hem. It had belonged to someone else once. Someone whose marriage had probably failed. The irony wasn't lost on her. 27 years old. Former rising star. Forbes 30 under 30 nominee at 24. CPA with a photographic memory for numbers and a future so bright it hurt to look at directly. That was 3 years ago. Now she was a waitress at Mel's Diner on 2nd Avenue, serving eggs and coffee to people who used to be her peers. Her family's estate, the one with the fountain in the circular driveway and the piano room her mother had loved, belonged to someone else now. Sold at auction when her father's investment firm collapsed in 2022. The Morvan name, once synonymous with old Seattle money, now meant nothing. Worse than nothing. It meant failure. Thea held a bouquet of carnations from the grocery store. $12, white and pink, already wilting at the edges. Her hands shook just slightly. Not from fear of the man waiting for her at the altar, from fear of the people watching. In the second row, directly in her line of sight, sat Genevieve Ashford. 28 years old, blonde hair and a perfect chignon, wearing a Chanel suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Genevieve had been Thea's best friend once, back when the Morvans had money, back when Thea's last name opened doors instead of closing them. Genevieve's family had bought the Morvan estate at auction. For pennies on the dollar, they'd renamed it Ashford Manor. Next to Genevieve sat her brother, Dorian, 30 years old, VP of Finance at Ashford Banking, and Thea's ex-fiancé. He swirled cheap champagne in a plastic cup, a sneer carved into his handsome face. The same face Thea had once loved. Before the bankruptcy, before he'd broken their engagement via text message while she was serving hash browns to a table of truck drivers. The message had been brief. Can't marry down. You understand. She'd understood perfectly. At the altar stood Cassian Ravencroft, tall, impossibly tall, 6'3" of lean muscle and sharp angles, like something carved from marble by an artist who understood danger. He wore a suit from Goodwill, too big in the shoulders, slightly frayed at the cuffs. His shoes were scuffed, but somehow none of it mattered, because when you looked at Cassian Ravencroft, you didn't see the clothes. You saw the eyes, storm gray, intense, ancient in a way that made no sense for a man who appeared to be 32 years old. When he looked at Thea, really looked at her, it felt like being seen for the first time in her life. He worked as a janitor at Ashford Banking. Night shift, minimum wage. He mopped the floors where Dorian walked, emptied the trash cans in the boardroom, cleaned the executive bathrooms. The wedding party consisted of the Justice of the Peace, a tired man in a rumpled suit who'd already performed 3 ceremonies that day, and 2 witnesses Cassian had brought. Thea didn't know them. One was an elderly man with silver hair and eyes that seemed to catch the light strangely. The other was a younger man, maybe 40, with a face like a Renaissance painting. Neither of them smiled. "Dearly beloved," the Justice of the Peace began, reading from a laminated card with all the enthusiasm of someone reading a grocery list. In the second row, Genevieve's phone buzzed. Loudly. She didn't silence it. The Justice continued. "We are gathered here today." "Is this really happening?" Genevieve's voice cut through the ceremony like a knife. She wasn't whispering. "Thea, honey, it's not too late to reconsider." Thea's grip tightened on the wilting carnations. Her mother had told her once, years before the cancer took her, "Your mind is your power, Thea. Never let them make you small." Thea lifted her chin, met Genevieve's eyes, said nothing. Sometimes silence was the strongest response. The Justice of the Peace cleared his throat, eager to finish. "Do you, Thea Elizabeth Morvan, take this man—" "Wait." Dorian stood up. The folding chair scraped against the linoleum floor. All eyes turned to him. He pulled a projector from a bag near his feet. A projector. at a wedding. Before we continue, Dorian said, his voice carrying the particular brand of cruelty that comes easy to people who've never struggled, I think everyone should see what we're really celebrating here. He clicked a button on his phone. The white wall behind the altar became a screen. A photo appeared. Thea at 24, hair perfect, makeup flawless, standing in front of the Morvan estate holding a plaque. Forbes 30 under 30. The caption read, Thea Morvan, rising star in forensic accounting. Another click. Thea at a gala wearing a dress that cost $3,000. Champagne glass in hand, Dorian's arm around her waist. They looked happy. They looked rich. They looked invincible. Another click. Thea in her waitress uniform. Grease stain on the apron. Hair in a messy ponytail. Exhaustion written in the shadows under her eyes. Someone had taken this photo through the diner window, without her knowledge, without her permission. The caption, from Forbes to food stamps. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not kind laughter, the sharp, cutting kind that draws blood. Another click. A screenshot of a medical bill. $47,000. Emergency appendectomy, 2023. Payment status, collections. Just so everyone knows what they're witnessing, Dorian announced, his voice dripping with false sympathy. This isn't a wedding. It's a charity case marrying a janitor. It's poverty marrying poverty. It's... The sound of breaking glass cut him off. Cassian had been holding a champagne flute, not drinking from it. He never drank at events, just holding it. Now the stem had snapped. Shards of glass littered the floor. Blood welled from his palm. But here's what made Thea's breath catch. The blood stopped flowing. Within seconds, the wound sealed itself, right there in front of everyone. No one else seemed to notice. They were too busy laughing at the slideshow. Cassian's eyes met hers. For just a fraction of a second, they weren't gray. They were red. Deep crimson red, like embers in a dying fire. Then they were gray again. And Thea wondered if she'd imagined it. Are you quite finished? Cassian's voice was quiet, controlled. But something in it made the laughter stop, made the room go still. It wasn't loud, it wasn't aggressive, but it carried weight, authority, the kind of presence that doesn't come from money or status. It comes from something older. Something primal. Dorian faltered just for a moment. Then he recovered his smirk. I'm just making sure everyone understands what's happening here. You're a janitor, Ravencroft. You scrub toilets for a living. And he gestured at Thea. She used to be somebody. Used to be, Genevieve echoed, her voice sweet as poison. Past tense. Cassian stepped forward. The movement was fluid, predatory. He stopped directly in front of Dorian, close enough that Dorian had to tilt his head back to meet his eyes. Keep your mockery, Cassian said softly. Keep your slideshow. Keep your champagne and your cruelty. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a crumpled $10 bill, the exact amount Dorian had mockingly offered as a wedding gift earlier, and pressed it into Dorian's hand. Keep this too. By Monday, you'll need it more than I do. Silence. Thea didn't understand what he meant, but something in his tone made her skin prickle. In the back row, the elderly man with silver hair, the one Cassian had brought as a witness, stood abruptly. His face had gone pale. Not just pale, white as bleached bone. He stared at Cassian like he'd seen a ghost. Or worse. Impossible, the old man whispered. Then louder, to no one in particular. The Ravencroft line. It can't be. They all died and... He stopped, shook his head. Walked out of the community center without another word. No one paid attention. They were too focused on the drama unfolding at the altar. Dorian looked at the $10 bill in his hand, looked at Cassian, laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Big words from a man who mops floors. The floors in your office, Cassian replied, his voice still quiet, still controlled. I know them very well. I know every inch of that building. Every secret, every lie, every debt. Something flickered across Dorian's face, uncertainty, fear maybe, but it was gone in a moment. Get on with the ceremony, Dorian said, sitting down. This is pathetic enough already. The justice of the peace cleared his throat, looked at Thea. Do you want to continue? Thea looked at the slideshow still projected on the wall, her failures on display for everyone to see. She looked at Genevieve's smug face, at Dorian's sneer, at the 50 people who'd come to witness her humiliation, not her happiness. Then she looked at Cassian. He hadn't moved, hadn't looked away from her. His hand was still bleeding from the broken glass. even though the wound had somehow healed. The blood was there, dried on his palm, but the cut was gone. Thea, he said quietly, just her name, nothing more. And in that one word, she heard what no one else in the room understood. You are not alone. I do, Thea said. The justice of the peace rushed through the rest. By the power vested in me by the state of Washington, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Cashin's lips were cool when they met hers. Not cold, just cooler than they should be. The kiss lasted 3 seconds, chaste, respectful. But in those 3 seconds, the fluorescent lights overhead flickered. Once, twice. The projection screen went dark. When the lights stabilized, Thea felt different, like something fundamental had shifted in the universe. Dorian stood up, clapping slowly, mockingly. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Janitor. Thea, darling, I got you a proper wedding present. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a crumpled $10 bill, a second one, and walked up to the altar. He tucked it into Cassian's breast pocket, the same way you'd tip a valet. For the honeymoon, Dorian said loudly, making sure everyone heard. Don't spend it all in one place. The room erupted in laughter. Thea felt the familiar burn of humiliation, the hot prickle of tears she refused to let fall. She moved to push Dorian away, to say something, anything. Cassian caught her wrist, gently. His grip was like iron, but he wasn't hurting her. He was steadying her. Don't, he said softly, for her ears only. They see what they want to see. Let them. He looked down at the $10 bill in his pocket, then up at Dorian, and for the second time that day, Thea could have sworn his eyes changed color. Just for a fraction of a second. Red like burning coals. Keep your money, mister. Ashford, Cassian said. His voice had changed too. Layered, like 3 people speaking at once. The temperature in the room dropped, just a degree or two, enough to be noticeable. You may find you need it more than I do, very soon. Dorian blinked. The confidence in his expression faltered. Just for a moment, he opened his mouth to respond. That's enough. Genevieve grabbed her brother's arm. Let's go. This is depressing. They left. Most of the guests followed. Within 5 minutes, the community center was empty, except for Thea, Cassian, the justice of the peace counting his cash payment, and Cassian's other witness, the younger man with the Renaissance painting face. Sire, the man said quietly, that was unwise. Revealing yourself to... Not now, Vesper, Cassian said. The man, Vesper, nodded, melted into the shadows near the exit. Literally melted, like he was made of smoke. Thea blinked, looked again. He was gone. Did he just... You're exhausted, Cassian said gently, guiding her toward the door. Let's go home. Home was a 4th-floor walk-up in the East End. No elevator. Peeling paint. A radiator that clanked like it was trying to break free from the wall. The neighbors upstairs fought every night at 3 a.m. The neighbors next door played bass-heavy music until dawn. It was the smallest place Thea had ever lived. It was theirs. As they walked to the bus stop, no car, no limousine, just the number 49 bus that ran every 20 minutes, rain began to fall. Seattle rain, cold and relentless. It soaked through Thea's consignment shop dress, turning the white fabric translucent. At the bus stop, under a shelter covered in graffiti, Cassian removed his Goodwill suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. I'm sorry, Thea said. She didn't know why she was apologizing. For the humiliation? For dragging him into her ruined life? For being poor and worthless in everything Dorian's slideshow had proven? Don't be. Cassian looked back toward the community center. The lights were still on, visible through the rain. Kings, he said quietly, more to himself than to her, do not concern themselves with the buzzing of flies. What? Nothing, he smiled. It transformed his face, made him look less like a statue and more like a man. Just something I learned a long time ago. The bus arrived. They got on, found seats in the back. Thea rested her head on his shoulder, exhausted. She didn't see the way Cassian watched the city skyline through the rain-streaked window. Didn't see the way his eyes lingered on the Ashford banking tower, its glass and steel rising above the other buildings like a monument to wealth and power. Didn't see the small, cold smile that curved his lips. Poverty, Thea learned, wasn't just about money. It was about time, about exhaustion, about the slow erosion of hope. She worked double shifts at Mel's Diner, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., then 4 p.m. to midnight. Her feet ached constantly. The grease from the kitchen stained her clothes, her hair, her skin. She came home smelling like bacon in desperation. Cassian worked the night shift at Ashford Banking, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., mopping floors, emptying trash, cleaning bathrooms. Their schedules barely overlapped, ships passing in the night, but somehow he always knew when she needed him. Like the Tuesday in week 5, Thea had been working the morning shift, serving coffee and eggs to a table of businessmen who didn't look at her face when they ordered. They looked through her, like she was furniture. One of them left a $5 tip on a $40 bill and called it generous. She'd been clearing their table when she noticed something: the receipt. The businessman had left it behind, a corporate card transaction from Ashford Banking. But the numbers were wrong, slightly off, the kind of wrong only someone with a photographic memory for numbers would notice. Thea did the math in her head. Twice. 3 times. Someone at Ashford Banking was skimming employee wages. Small amounts. $5 here, $10 there, spread across 200 employees. It added up to roughly $8,000 a month. Embezzlement. She'd built the entire case on napkins during her break, used the timestamps from the cash register, cross-referenced them with deposit dates she remembered from her days working in forensic accounting. The pattern was clear. Her boss, Mel, was the thief. Thea had shown him the napkins, explained the evidence, thought maybe he'd be grateful she'd caught the mistake before an audit did. Instead, he'd fired her. "You're too smart for your own good," Mel had said, ripping up the napkins. "Get out." She'd walked home in the rain. Again. Always raining in Seattle. Her uniform soaked through, her feet blistering in cheap shoes. $47 in tips in her pocket, her last paycheck from a job she no longer had. She'd climbed the 4 flights of stairs to their apartment, hands shaking as she unlocked the door. Cassian was there. He shouldn't have been. He should have been sleeping. He'd worked all night. But he was there, standing in their tiny kitchen, wearing jeans and a t-shirt that had been washed so many times the fabric was thin. "You lost your job," he said. Not a question. "How did you—" "Your hands are shaking. You only shake when something's very wrong." He crossed the small space between them, cupped her face in his hands. His palms were cool, always cool, like he'd been holding ice. "What happened?" She told him about the napkins, the math, the embezzlement, the firing. Cassian listened. When she finished, he walked to the trash can, pulled out the crumpled napkins she'd thrown away, and smoothed them out on the counter. He studied them, his eyes moving across the numbers, the timestamps, the patterns she'd found. "This is brilliant," he said finally. "It got me fired." "No," he looked at her. "Mel's fear got you fired. He knew you were right. That's why he panicked." Cassian carefully folded the napkins and put them in his pocket. "May I keep these?" "Why?" "Because I know people who appreciate this kind of intelligence. I'm unemployed, Cassian. I can't pay rent. I can't—" "We'll figure it out." He pulled her into his arms. She fit against him perfectly, like 2 puzzle pieces that had been separated for years finally finding each other. "You have a gift, Thea. You see patterns. Most people look at numbers and see chaos. You see truth." She wanted to believe him. But rent was due in 6 days, and they had $218 in their joint checking account. The next morning, Thea woke to find an envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside, a check, made out to her. $11,000. Memo line, payment for consulting services. She'd stared at it for 10 minutes. Cassian was asleep, or what passed for sleep with him. She'd never actually seen him in a deep sleep. He always seemed half awake, like he was listening to something she couldn't hear. She'd picked up her phone, almost called to question the check. But something stopped her. Instead, she'd done what any forensic accountant would do. She'd investigated. She'd gone to the public library, free internet, and searched for the company name on the check. Ravencroft Foundation, established 1479. Thea had read that 3 times. 1979 made sense. 1479 did not. It had to be a typo, but the incorporation documents didn't lie. Filed in the state of Washington, 1979. But the foundation's own website claimed a legacy dating back to 1479. Medieval Italy, assets undisclosed. Purpose, humanitarian aid and historical preservation. President and CEO C. Ravencroft. Thea had stared at her husband's initial on the screen. Then she'd started digging deeper. Public records showed C. Ravencroft had owned property in Seattle since 1889. The same property. Through multiple sales and transfers, always ending back with C. Ravencroft. Photos from the archives. A man at the opening of the Seattle Pacific Railroad, 1889. Tall, dark hair, storm gray eyes. Caption, Cassian Ravencroft, investor. Another photo, the opening of the first Ashford Bank, 1934. A man cutting the ribbon alongside the Ashford family patriarch. Same face, same eyes. Caption, C. Ravencroft, majority shareholder. Another, a tech startup in 1978. A younger crowd, but one man stood out. Same face, same eyes, same impossible resemblance. Thea's hands had shaken as she'd clicked through image after image. Different decades, different centuries almost, but the same man. The librarian had approached her table. Finding everything you need? Do you know anything about the Ravencroft family? Thea had asked. The librarian, an older woman with kind eyes and silver hair, had smiled. Oh, there's an urban legend about them. People say they're vampires, immortal. That's why the men in the family photographs never seem to age. They're all the same person. She'd laughed. But that's just nonsense, of course. Probably good genetics and clever archival work. Right, Thea had said. Nonsense. But she'd printed the photos anyway. 30 cents per page. She'd spent $9 printing evidence that her husband might be someone, something, other than what he claimed. That evening, Cassian came home from his shift at 2 a.m. Thea was still awake, sitting at their thrift store kitchen table. The photos spread out in front of her. He saw them, stopped in the doorway. You found them, he said quietly. Who are you? Thea asked. Really? Cassian set down his backpack. He carried his janitor supplies in an old JanSport, the same bag college students use for textbooks. He walked to the table, looked down at the photos. That's a complicated question, he said finally. Is this you? In all of these? Silence. Cassian, are these photos of you? Yes. One word. Quiet. Final. Thea's hands shook. That's not possible. This one is from 1889. You'd have to be old, Cassian finished. Very old. That's insane. I know. You're telling me you're over 100 years old? I'm telling you, Cassian said, pulling out a chair and sitting across from her, that I need you to trust me. Just a little longer. Come with me this Saturday to the Lunar Convergence, and I'll show you everything. What's the Lunar Convergence? A gathering, a ceremony. It happens once every 547 years, and this Saturday it happens again. He reached across the table, took her hand. His skin was cool, always so cool. I wanted to wait, to tell you everything when the time was right, but you're too smart for secrets. You said 547 years. I did. Cassian, that's impossible, I know, but some things that seem impossible are just truths we haven't learned to accept yet. Thea looked at the photos, at the man in them who had the same face as her husband, the same eyes, the same impossible resemblance. Are you dangerous? She asked. To you, never. To others? He considered. I can be. Are you human? Silence, long enough that Thea felt her heartbeat in her throat. No, Cassian said finally. Not anymore. I was once, a long time ago, but now I'm something else. What? Come with me Saturday, let me show you, and then you can decide if you want to stay. Stay? Married to me, with me, in this life. He squeezed her hand. I won't blame you if you run. Most people do. Thea thought about the wedding, about Dorian and Genevieve's mockery, about the slideshow and the laughter and the humiliation, about how Cassian had stood beside her through all of it, unshaken. She thought about the past 3 months, the poverty, the struggle, how he'd worked nights so she could work days, maximizing their income, how he'd given her the better pillow because hers was flat, how he'd learned to cook the 3 meals she loved most, even though she'd never seen him eat a single bite. Okay, she said. Okay. I'll come with you Saturday. But Cassian? Yes? If you're some kind of monster, you're the kindest monster I've ever met. He smiled. Sad and ancient and beautiful. That's the nicest thing anyone's said to me in 5 centuries. Saturday morning before the Lunar Convergence, Cassian took Thea to Cal Anderson Park. It was one of the few free activities left in their budget. Walk around the park, breathe air that didn't smell like grease or mildew. Pretend for an hour that they were just a normal couple. Thea brought a chessboard, cheap plastic pieces in a cardboard box, $5 from a thrift store. Chess had been her father's game. Before the bankruptcy, before the shame, before the heart attack that killed him 6 months after losing everything, he'd taught her to play. They set up on a bench near the reflecting pool. Tourists walked by, taking photos. Joggers circled the path. A street musician played guitar in the distance. Thea played white, opened with her king's pawn. Cassian studied the board, moved his knight. They played in silence for the first 10 moves. Thea focused, calculating 3 moves ahead, the way her father had taught her. Cassian seemed relaxed, almost casual, but his moves were precise. On move 15, Thea saw it, a pattern, a weakness in his position. She exploited it, took his rook, then his bishop. By move 23, she had him in checkmate. Cassian stared at the board, tilted his head. A slow smile spread across his face. "No one's beaten me in a very long time," he said. "How long?" "Roughly 312 years. Thea laughed. It felt good to laugh. "You're exaggerating." "I'm not." He reset the pieces. "Again?" They played 5 more games. Thea won 3, Cassian won 2. By the 6th game, a small crowd had gathered. People watching, whispering. "She's good," someone murmured. "Who's the guy? He looks like a model." "They're so intense. It's like watching a battle." On the final game, move 34, Cassian leaned back and conceded. "You have a gift," he said. "You see patterns in everything. Numbers, people, strategy. My father taught me." "He taught you well." Thea packed up the chess pieces. Her hands were shaking slightly. Not from nerves, from something else. A feeling she hadn't had in 3 years, since before the bankruptcy. Pride. "Cassian," she said slowly, "what are you? I told you I'm not human, not anymore." "But what does that mean?" He looked around. The crowd had dispersed, but a few people still lingered nearby. "Not here, tonight. At the Convergence. I'll show you everything." He stood, offered his hand. "But first, we need to prepare you." "Prepare me for what?" "To meet my world." Cassian led her to the Seattle Public Library, the central branch, the one that looked like a spaceship made of glass and steel. They entered through the main doors, walked past the checkout desks, the computer stations, the rows of books. Cassian nodded at the librarian, the same older woman with silver hair from Thea's research visit days earlier. "Mr. Ravencroft," the librarian said warmly. "It's been months." "Mrs. Chen," Cassian replied. "Is the room available?" "Always for you." She handed him an old-fashioned key, brass, ornate, like something from a museum. Cassian led Thea to the back of the library, past the rare book section, through a door marked staff only, pushed down a flight of stairs that seemed to go deeper than they should. At the bottom, another door, heavy wood, reinforced with iron bands. Cassian unlocked it. Inside was a room that shouldn't exist. Vaulted ceilings, stone walls, candelabras, actual candelabras with real candles, casting flickering light across racks of clothing. Not modern clothing, historical pieces, gowns from different eras, suits, cloaks, jewelry displayed in glass cases. "What is this place?" Thea whispered. "My collection," Cassian said. "Items I've gathered over the years. The library lets me store them here. Mrs. Chen's family has been helping mine for a very long time." Thea walked to the nearest rack. A dress hung there, midnight blue silk from the Victorian era. The craftsmanship was exquisite, museum quality. "Try it on," Cassian said. "I can't wear this. It's an antique." "It's a dress, and you need something to wear tonight." He moved to another rack, selected a simpler gown. Deep green, modern cut, but with historical elegance. "This one, it'll fit you perfectly." "How do you know my size?" "I notice things about you." He set the dress on a chair, turned away to give her privacy. "I notice everything." Thea changed. The dress fit like it had been made for her. The fabric was silk, real silk, cool against her skin. She looked at herself in the full-length mirror in the corner. She looked like someone else. Someone who belonged in this world of old money and hidden vaults. Someone who wasn't poor. "Cassian," she said quietly, "how much is all this worth?" He turned, saw her in the dress. His expression shifted. For a moment, he looked vulnerable. Young, human. "More than I can spend in 10 lifetimes," he said. "But it's just things, Thea. Objects. They don't matter." "Then why keep them?" "Memories." He walked to a glass case, touched the surface gently. Inside, a pocket watch. Gold, engraved with intricate designs. The inscription read, 1478. "This was given to me the year I died," Cassian said. "The year I became what I am now." "What are you?" Thea asked again. "Please, just tell me." He looked at her, storm-gray eyes holding secrets that weighed centuries. "I'm a vampire," he said. "I was born in 1447, turned in 1478 during the Italian Wars. I've lived for 547 years. I've seen empires rise and fall. I've loved and lost more times than I can count. And 3 months ago, I met you. A woman who looked at me and saw a janitor, but treated me with more kindness than kings ever showed me. Silence. Thea's heart hammered. She should run. She should scream. She should do anything except stand there in a dress worth more than her entire life, staring at a man who claimed to be a vampire. Prove it, she said. Cassian smiled, sad and resigned. All right, he opened his mouth, his canines extended. Not fake, not a trick. She watched as the teeth lengthened into fangs, sharp and white and deadly. His eyes changed, gray to crimson, glowing softly in the candlelight. The shadows in the room moved, not from the flickering candles. They moved toward him, drawn like iron to a magnet, swirling around his feet. This is what I am, Cassian said. His voice had changed too, layered, ancient. I'm a monster, Thea. I drink blood to survive. I've killed people. Not in a long time, but I have. I'm stronger than any human. Faster. I don't age. I don't die. I can do things that violate every law of nature. He closed his mouth. The fangs retracted. His eyes faded back to gray. The shadows stilled. And I'm desperately in love with you. Thea's hands were shaking. Her breath came in short gasps. Every rational part of her brain screamed to run. But the part of her that had beaten him at chess, that had built a case for embezzlement on napkins, that had survived 3 years of humiliation and poverty without breaking, that part spoke louder. You saved me, she said. That night with the muggers, you didn't just scare them away. You did something to them. Yes. And you've been protecting me ever since. Yes. Wait. Because, Cassian said, stepping closer, for 547 years, I've walked this earth alone. I've had lovers, friends, people who wanted my power, my money, my blood, but no one who just wanted me. Until you. You married a janitor, Thea. You chose poverty with me over wealth without me. Do you have any idea how rare that is? I chose love, Thea said simply. Exactly. He cupped her face in his cool hands. I'm taking a serum, a potion created by a witch in Prague in 1634. It makes me mortal. Slowly. I'm aging with you, Thea. In 50 years, I'll look 82. In 60 years, I'll die. Human, mortal, beside you. You're giving up immortality? I gave it up the day I decided to marry you. Tonight at the convergence, my people will ask me to choose. The throne, or you, eternity, or 50 mortal years. He smiled. I've already chosen. I chose you. I'll always choose you. Thea's vision blurred with tears. Happy tears, terrified tears, she didn't know which. What happens tonight, she asked. I reclaim my throne, or I walk away from it. Either way, the world will know the truth. And Thea, his voice softened, people who've mocked you, humiliated you, looked through you like you were nothing. They'll see you stand beside a king. They'll know they were wrong about you. I don't care about them. I know, but I do. I care that you've been underestimated, undervalued, treated like you're worthless when you're the most brilliant person I've met in half a millennium. He kissed her forehead, gentle, reverent. Are you ready? He asked. Thea looked at the vault around them, at the centuries of history, at the impossible man standing before her, offering her a crown and a lifetime, and a truth that defied everything she'd ever known. Yes, she said, because sometimes the only way forward is to jump. They returned to the apartment to wait for nightfall. The convergence would begin at midnight when the blood moon reached its peak. Cassian said he had preparations to make, phone calls, arrangements. He stepped into their tiny bedroom, barely big enough for the mattress on the floor, and closed the door. Thea sat on the couch. The green dress felt strange in their cramped apartment, like wearing diamonds to a food bank. She heard Cassian's voice through the thin walls. Low, speaking to someone. Can't be postponed, Vesper. The convergence happens once every 547 years. If I don't claim the throne now, the covenant dissolves. A pause, someone responding on the other end of the phone. Or maybe in the room with him. The walls were thin, but not that thin. I know the risks, Cassian continued, but I'm taking the serum. I'm aging with her. She deserves a husband who will grow old beside her, not a creature who stays young while she withers. Another voice, deeper, older, not on the phone. In the room, Thea stood, walked quietly to the bedroom door. It was cracked open, just slightly. Through the gap, she saw him. Cassian, standing in the center of their bedroom. But he wasn't alone. A figure stood in the shadows near the window. Tall, dressed in clothes that looked centuries out of date, velvet and dark lace. The figure moved, and Thea caught a glimpse of his face, the younger man from the wedding. Vesper. Sire, Vesper said, his voice heavy with concern. The blood moon eclipse happens once every 547 years. If you don't claim your throne at the lunar convergence, the covenant dissolves. You'll lose immortality. Permanently. I don't care about immortality if it means living alone, Cassian said. Thea sees me, Vesper. Not the crown, not the power, just me. And if she learns what you've been doing, that you've been choosing mortality for her, that every day you take that serum, you're literally dying to be human, then she'll know the truth, that I love her more than eternity. Thea's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. Vesper sighed. The council will not accept this. Althea has already declared you unfit. She says a king who chooses a mortal over his people is no king at all. Althea can say what she likes. I'm not asking permission. They'll challenge you. At the convergence, the 3 trials are mandatory. You know this. I know. And if you fail even one trial, you forfeit the throne. The serum will have been for nothing. You'll die mortal, powerless, in 50 years. Then I die mortal. Cassian's voice was firm. Final. I've lived 547 years, Vesper. I've conquered territories, amassed wealth, ruled with absolute power, and I was empty. Every single day. Until 3 months ago, when a woman in a waitress uniform asked if I was hurt before asking if she was safe. That's when I knew. Knew what? That I'd rather have 50 years of being seen than 500 more of being alone. Silence. Then Vesper spoke, his voice softer. She's listening. Cassian turned toward the door, met Thea's eyes through the crack. I know, he said. Thea pushed the door open, walked into the room, looked at Vesper, who bowed slightly, an old-fashioned gesture that seemed natural for him. Mrs. Ravencroft, Vesper said, forgive the intrusion. You're a vampire too, Thea said, not a question. I am. And there are more of you. Many more. Thea looked at Cassian. The lunar convergence. It's not just a ceremony, it's a trial. 3 trials, Cassian confirmed, to prove I'm worthy of the throne. Blood, loyalty, sacrifice. And if you fail, I lose everything, the throne. The immortality I've already given up. The serum will have weakened me for nothing. But you're doing it anyway. I am. Why? Because, Cassian said, crossing the small room to stand before her, I spent 547 years being a king. I want to spend the next 50 being your husband. That's worth any trial. Thea looked at Vesper. And you? Do you think he's making a mistake? Vesper considered. I think, he said carefully, that in all my centuries serving him, I've never seen him happy. Until now. He bowed again. I'll see you at the convergence, sire. Mrs. Ravencroft. He stepped backward, literally melted into the shadows. One moment there, the next gone. Thea stared at the empty space. I'm never going to get used to that. You will, Cassian said, if you stay. If I stay, Cassian, I married you. I'm not going anywhere. You married a janitor. Now you know you married a vampire king. That's a significant difference. Thea laughed. It came out slightly hysterical. You think I care about that? You think I care if you're a human or vampire or something in between? Cassian, you're the only person in 3 years who's treated me like I matter. The only person who sees me as more than a failure. You're not a failure. I know that now, because you showed me. She took his cool hands in hers. So yes, I'm staying. Through trials. Through crowns. Through whatever happens tonight. I'm staying. Cassian pulled her into his arms, held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Then we do this together, he said. Outside, the sun began to set. The sky turned deep purple, the color of bruises, the color of blood moons and ancient ceremonies. The convergence was beginning. And Thea Morvan, former Forbes 30 under 30, current unemployed waitress, recently married to a vampire king, had no idea that in the next 6 hours, her entire life would transform. But she was about to find out. The entrance to the Obsidian Basilica was hidden beneath Pike Place Market, not the tourist section with its flying fish and flower stalls. The old section, the part most people walked past without seeing. Cassian led Thea through a doorway that looked like a maintenance entrance, downstairs that smelled of salt water and centuries. The steps were stone, worn smooth by countless feet over countless years. How long has this been here? Thea whispered. Since 1692, Cassian said, built by the first vampires who came to the New World, before Seattle was Seattle, before America was America. They descended for what felt like miles. Thea's legs burned, her heart hammered. The green silk dress whispered against the stone walls. At the bottom, a door. Not wood, not metal. Obsidian. Black volcanic glass polished to a mirror shine. Carved into its surface were symbols Thea didn't recognize. Ancient. Powerful. Cassian placed his palm against the door. The symbols glowed red. The door opened. Sound hit Thea first. Not noise, sound. A low thrumming that vibrated in her chest, like a heartbeat, like the earth itself was breathing. Then light. Candlelight. Thousands of candles. They lined the walls, the pillars, the vaulted ceiling of a cathedral that shouldn't exist beneath a fish market. The obsidian basilica. It was massive. Gothic arches soared overhead. Stained glass windows depicted scenes that made no sense. Vampires and humans, together. Battles, peace treaties, blood moons. The windows glowed from some internal light source, casting red and purple shadows across stone floors. And the people, hundreds of them, maybe more. They filled the pews, the balconies, the standing areas. All of them beautiful in that particular way that comes from not being human. Perfect skin, eyes too bright, movements too fluid. Vampires, every single one of them turned when Cassian entered. The thrumming sound stopped. Silence. Complete. Absolute. Thea felt their eyes on her. Hundreds of ancient beings assessing. Judging. She was the only human in a room full of predators. Her hand found Cassian's. His fingers closed around hers. Cool. Steady. It's all right, he murmured. You're with me. They walked down the center aisle. Thea kept her chin up, her spine straight. Her mother's voice in her head, never let them make you small. At the front of the basilica, on a raised dais, sat 5 thrones. 4 were occupied. The 5th, the largest in the center, stood empty. The 4 vampires on the thrones were old, not in appearance. They looked anywhere from 30 to 60, but old in their eyes, ancient. They'd seen centuries, empires, the rise and fall of civilizations. The woman in the leftmost throne stood. She was tall, regal, with silver hair that fell past her shoulders. Her gown was deep burgundy, medieval in cut. Her eyes were the color of ice. Cassian Ravencroft, she said. Her voice carried across the basilica without her raising it. You've returned. Althea, Cassian replied. I told you I would. You told us many things. You also told us you'd remain alone, that you'd learned your lesson about mortal attachments. Her gaze slid to Thea, cold, assessing. Yet here you are, with a human. My wife, Cassian said. The possessiveness in his voice was clear. Murmurs rippled through the assembled vampires, not approving. Your wife, Althea repeated. She descended from her throne, moved with that too fluid grace, and stopped 3 feet from Thea. What is your name, girl? Thea Morven. She refused to look down, refused to show fear. Thea Ravencroft now. Althea's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Bold, I'll grant you that. She walked a slow circle around Thea. Do you know why we're gathered here tonight, Thea Ravencroft? The lunar convergence, the blood moon eclipse. It happens once every 547 years. Clever too, Cassian always did prefer intelligence over beauty. Though you're passably pretty, I suppose. For a mortal. Thea bit back, the response rising in her throat. Insults only had power if you let them. Tonight, Althea continued, addressing the basilica now, we gather to witness the reclamation of the throne. Cassian Ravencroft, first of his name, sovereign of the Night Court, abandoned his crown 312 years ago. He swore he'd return when he found something worth ruling for. She turned back to Cassian. Is this it? Is this mortal woman worth a throne? She's worth more than any throne, Cassian said quietly. Gasps, angry whispers. Althea raised her hand. Silence fell again. Then you'll have no difficulty with the trials. The 3 trials of sovereignty. Blood, loyalty, sacrifice. Refuse any trial, fail any trial, and you forfeit not just the throne but the covenant itself. You'll die mortal, powerless, within decades. I understand the terms, Cassian said. Do you? Althea's eyes narrowed. Because there's one more condition, one we've added specifically for this convergence. The human stays. She witnesses everything, every trial, every choice, and at the end, she decides. Decides what? Thea asked. Whether you're worthy of him, whether his choice to give up eternity for you is wise or foolish, Whether love is stronger than survival. Althea smiled. Cruel. We've never let a mortal judge a king before, but these are unusual circumstances. She returned to her throne, gestured to the other council members. Let the trials begin. Two vampires emerged from the shadows carrying a chalice. Not silver, not gold. Bone. Human bone, carved and polished, with symbols etched into its surface. They placed it on an altar before the empty throne. The liquid inside was dark, red, but not blood. Something worse. Thea could smell it from where she stood, sulfur and decay and pain. The trial of blood, Althea announced. To prove your strength, you must drink from the cursed chalice. It contains blood mixed with banefire, a poison created in the 14th century specifically to kill our kind. It will burn you from the inside. Most vampires die within minutes. Those who survive are forever weakened. And if I refuse, Cassian asked, you fail. You die mortal. And your human widow gets to watch you age and wither over the next 50 years. Thea's hand tightened on Cassian's. Don't, she whispered. This is insane. You don't have to prove anything to them. Yes, Cassian said gently. I do, not for them, for you. So you know what I'd endure to be worthy of you. He walked to the altar, lifted the chalice. The liquid inside gleamed like oil slick, swirling with colors that shouldn't exist in nature. He looked at Thea one more time, smiled, then drank. The effect was immediate. Cassian's body convulsed. The chalice fell from his hands, shattering on the stone floor. He dropped to his knees, hands clawing at his chest. Thea ran to him. Guards moved to stop her. Two massive vampires appeared out of nowhere, but she shoved past them, dropped beside Cassian. Stop this! She screamed at Althea. You're killing him! If he's worthy, Althea said calmly, he'll survive. Cassian's skin was turning gray. Veins appeared, black and branching, spreading across his face, his neck, his hands. His eyes rolled back. Blood, black blood, wrong blood, leaked from his nose, his ears. He screamed. The sound tore through the basilica, inhuman, agonized. The kind of sound that comes from pain no mortal could survive. Thea tried to hold him, but his body was burning. Not with heat, with cold, ice cold, like touching liquid nitrogen. Cassian, she sobbed. Cassian, stay with me, please. The black veins spread, covered his entire body. For a horrible moment, Thea thought she was watching him die. Thought she was about to become a widow after 3 months of marriage to a man who'd given up immortality for her. Then the veins began to fade, slowly, so slowly, receding like a tide going out. Color returned to his skin, his breathing steadied, his eyes opened. Gray, not red, exhausted but alive. I'm sorry, he whispered, reaching up to touch her face. I'm sorry you had to see that. You idiot, Thea said, crying, laughing. You absolute idiot. Don't ever do that again. Only 2 more trials, he said weakly. Tried to smile, failed. Thea helped him stand. He leaned on her, a vampire king leaning on a human woman, and faced the council. Trial 1, Althea said, and for the first time, there was something like respect in her voice. Complete. Applause, scattered, reluctant, but applause nonetheless. In the back of the basilica, in the shadows where the candlelight didn't quite reach, Thea saw them, Dorian and Genevieve Ashford. They sat in the last row, partially hidden, but Thea recognized them. Dorian's sneer, Genevieve's perfectly styled hair. What were they doing here? She didn't have time to wonder. The second trial was beginning. The trial of loyalty, Althea announced, is simple. You must prove your allegiance to your kind over all else. To prove that vampires, your people, your subjects, matter more than mortal attachments. She gestured. A vampire Thea hadn't noticed stepped forward. Male, young-looking. He carried a sword, ancient. The blade was dark metal, etched with more of those symbols Thea couldn't read. Kneel, Althea commanded. Cassian knelt, still weak from the first trial, still gray around the edges. The vampire with the sword stood behind him, raised the blade. Denounce her, Althea said. Say the words. This mortal means nothing. My loyalty is to the Night Court alone. Say them and you pass this trial. Refuse and you fail. The basilica went silent. Every vampire leaned forward, waiting. Cassian looked at Thea. She saw everything in his eyes. The love, the regret, the impossible choice. Say it, Thea told him. Cassian, just say it. I don't care, I know the truth. I care, he said softly. He stood. The vampire with the sword tensed. Cassian faced Althea. face the council, face the hundreds of vampires watching. I will not, he said. Gasps, shouts, anger rippling through the crowd. You fail, Althea said. You choose a mortal over your... No, Thea's voice cut through the noise. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. The basilica had excellent acoustics, and the word carried. No, he doesn't fail. You fail. She walked to the center of the dais, every vampire eye turned to her. A human, standing where only kings stood. You want loyalty? Thea said. Here's loyalty. This man spent months scrubbing floors. Not because he had to, because he wanted to understand what it means to struggle. To be powerless, to be human. She gestured at the assembled vampires. How many of you have done that? How many of you have given up comfort, power, immortality, to walk among the people you claim to protect? To actually understand them? Silence. You sit in your thrones, Thea continued, and you judge him for loving someone. You test his loyalty by asking him to denounce his wife. But real loyalty isn't blind obedience. Real loyalty is choosing to stand beside someone even when it costs you everything. She looked at Cassian. He's not failing your test. He's passing mine. More silence. Then from somewhere in the middle of the basilica, a single vampire began to clap. Then another. Then more. Vesper, the vampire who'd visited their apartment, stepped forward from the shadows. He bowed to Thea, actually bowed. The mortal speaks truth, Vesper said. Perhaps we've forgotten what honor means. Althea's expression was carved from ice. This is highly irregular. So is asking a king to denounce his wife, Vesper replied. With respect, counselor, perhaps the trial itself is flawed. Murmurs of agreement, not everyone. But enough. Althea stared at Thea for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled, a real smile. Thin, but real. Very well, she said. The trial of loyalty is complete, unconventionally, but complete. She turned to Cassian. Your mortal has a spine. I'll grant you that. 2 trials down, 1 to go. The final trial, Althea said, the trial of sacrifice. This one is simple. Choose. 2 vampires emerged from opposite sides of the basilica. One carried a golden vial on a velvet cushion. The liquid inside glowed with inner light. Beautiful. Terrible. Wrong. The other vampire carried nothing. Just stood there, waiting. The elixir of eternity, Althea explained, gesturing to the vial. Drink this, and the mortality serum you've been taking will be reversed. Instantly. You'll reclaim your full power, your immortality, your throne. You'll rule the night court for another 1,000 years. 10,000. Forever. She gestured to the empty-handed vampire. Or refuse. Walk away with your mortal. Live 50 more years as a human. Die in a hospital bed, weak and forgotten. No throne, no power. Just a quiet death. The choice is yours, Althea finished. Eternity as a king, or mortality as a man. Cassian looked at the vial. The golden liquid swirled, hypnotic, tempting. Thea could see the desire in his eyes. Not for power, for time. For the chance to keep living, keep existing, keep experiencing the world. He walked to the altar where the vial rested, picked it up, held it up to the candlelight. 547 years, he said quietly. I've lived 547 years. I've ruled kingdoms, built empires, amassed wealth that could buy cities. I've had lovers, servants, subjects who die at my command. I've had everything a creature could want. He looked at Thea, and I was empty every single day until 3 months ago. He turned the vial in his hand. This is immortality. This is power beyond measure. This is everything I was. Then he threw it on the ground. The vial shattered. Golden liquid spread across the stone, hissing and smoking where it touched the floor. The light inside it died. Gasps, shouts. One vampire in the balcony fainted. I choose her, Cassian said. I choose 50 years of being human, of growing old, of dying mortal. I choose love over eternity. I choose Thea. Thea ran to him, threw her arms around him, buried her face in his chest and cried. Happy tears, terrified tears, grateful tears. You idiot, she whispered again. You beautiful, stupid idiot. Probably, he agreed, holding her. But I'm your idiot. The basilica erupted. Some vampires applauded. Others shouted in outrage. The council members argued among themselves, voices rising. And in the back, in the shadows, Dorian Ashford stood up. Enough, he shouted. The basilica fell silent. Dorian walked down the center aisle. confident, smirking. He stopped at the base of the dais. "You're all fools," he said. "This king chose a human over you, a mortal, a nothing, someone who used to scrub tables for minimum wage." He pulled something from his jacket, small, round, metallic. Genevieve saw it. Her eyes went wide. "Dorian, what are you—" He threw it. The grenade hit the floor in the center of the basilica and detonated, not with an explosion, with light, ultraviolet light, bright, searing, artificial sunlight concentrated into a weapon. Vampires screamed, scattered, smoke rose from skin. Some of the older ones, the ones who'd stood too close, began to burn. Chaos. Cassian grabbed Thea, shielded her with his body. The UV light hit his back. She heard him scream, felt his body convulse as the light burned through his clothing, his skin. "Cassian!" she screamed. The light was fading. UV grenades only lasted seconds, but the damage was done. Vampires lay writhing on the floor. The smell of burned flesh filled the basilica. Cassian collapsed. His back was burned, raw, blistered, the skin black and red and wrong. Dorian stood in the center aisle, laughing. "Did you really think I'd let this happen? Let you take over Ashford Banking? Let you humiliate me?" He pulled out another grenade. "The hunters are coming. 200 of them. I gave them the location. I told them about the convergence. They'll be here in 10 minutes, and when they arrive, they'll exterminate every vampire in Seattle." Genevieve ran to him. "Dorian, you said you'd just scare them. You said—" "I lied," he said, shoved her away. "I'm not letting him win. I'm not letting her win. You were supposed to marry me, Thea. You were supposed to be poor and desperate and grateful. Instead, instead, you married a monster and stood there like a queen." Thea looked around frantically. Cassian was burned, weakened. The other vampires were in disarray, and Dorian had another grenade. She needed to think. Use her brain, the only weapon she had, UV light. How did it work? What stopped it? High school chemistry, Miss Patterson's class. The unit on electromagnetic radiation. UV light required. Oxygen, a medium to travel through. Carbon dioxide displaced oxygen. Fire extinguisher. Thea's eyes locked on the wall. There, a fire extinguisher. Old-fashioned. CO2 canister. She ran. Dorian was pulling the pin on the second grenade. Thea grabbed the extinguisher, ripped it from the wall, aimed at Dorian. "Don't!" he started. She blasted him. CO2 erupted in a white cloud. The grenade fell from his hand. Thea kept spraying. The UV grenade hit the floor, but the light died instantly. Smothered by carbon dioxide, no oxygen, no UV transmission. The grenade fizzled. Harmless. Silence. Every vampire in the basilica stared at her. The human who'd just saved them with high school chemistry. Thea lowered the extinguisher, looked at Dorian, covered in CO2 frost, coughing. "You always underestimated me," she said quietly. "All of you. You saw a poor girl and thought that's all I was. You never looked deeper." She walked back to Cassian, knelt beside him. His burns were already healing, vampire physiology, but slowly. The UVAV had weakened him. "I'm okay," he said through gritted teeth. "Thea, you saved them." "I saved you," she corrected. Behind them, Cassian's body began to change. The pain, the rage, the protective fury of seeing his wife in danger. His eyes turned crimson, deep, glowing. Not just the irises, the entire eye. His skin went pale, marble white, fangs descended. Longer than before, sharp, and the shadows. They didn't just move toward him, they erupted from him. Black tendrils like living smoke, writhing across the floor. Crawling up the pillars, spreading across the ceiling. Cassian stood. His wounds were still healing, but he didn't care. He looked at Dorian with an expression that was pure predator. "You brought hunters to my people," Cassian said. His voice was layered, triple tone, the voice of a king. "You endangered my wife. You threw UV grenades in a sacred place." He took a step forward. The shadows moved with him. Dorian stumbled backward, tripped, fell on his ass. I didn't." "You did." Cassian's hands shot out. Didn't touch Dorian. Didn't need to. Dorian's body lifted off the ground. Telekinesis. Raw. Powerful. Dorian rose 6 feet in the air, arms pinned to his sides by invisible force. "In the old days," Cassian said, "I would have torn your throat out, slowly, made you watch your own blood drain. Made an example." "Cassian," Thea's voice, quiet, firm. Don't. He looked at her. The crimson in his eyes flickered. Don't kill him, Thea said. Prove you're better. Prove you're worthy of that throne. He tried to kill you. And he failed. Because I'm smarter than him. Because you taught me to see my own worth. Don't let him turn you into the monster he thinks you are. Cassian stared at her. The basilica held its breath. Then slowly he lowered his hand. Dorian crashed to the floor, gasped, scrambled backward. For her, Cassian said, his voice still layered, still terrible. Only for her do you live. But you're exiled, from Seattle, from this court, from every place my people dwell. If I see you again, Dorian Ashford, mercy won't save you. He turned to the council. Get him out of here, and prepare for the hunters. They're coming. Vesper materialized from the shadows, grabbed Dorian by the collar, hauled him to his feet. With pleasure, sire. As Dorian was dragged away, Genevieve stood. She looked at Thea. Her face was pale, shocked. You saved us, Genevieve whispered. After everything I did to you. You saved us. I didn't do it for you, Thea said. I did it because it was right. Genevieve nodded, looked like she wanted to say more. Couldn't find words. Finally just said, thank you. She left. Followed her brother out of the basilica. Althea descended from her throne. Walked to Cassian, to Thea. She looked at the shattered grenade, the CO2 frost, the burns on Cassian's back. The hunters are coming, she said. We have minutes, maybe less. Then we evacuate, Cassian said. Get everyone out, use the northern tunnels. And you? Cassian looked at Thea. We run. Where? He smiled, tired, pained, but real. Somewhere they'll never find us. The basilica erupted into controlled chaos. Vampires fled through hidden tunnels, secret doors, passages carved centuries ago, for exactly this purpose. The council coordinated. Vesper led groups. Within minutes, the basilica was nearly empty. Only Cassian, Thea, and Althea remained. Go, Althea said to Cassian. I'll seal the doors. They won't get through before dawn. The throne is yours. You passed the trials. Unconventionally, but you passed. She smiled, thin, genuine. Besides, any king who'd give up immortality for love is exactly the kind of fool we need ruling. Footsteps above. Heavy. Many. The hunters had found the entrance. Go, Althea commanded. Cassian grabbed Thea's hand, pulled her toward the back of the basilica. Not to a tunnel, to a wall, solid stone. Cassian, that's a... He placed his palm against it. The stone shimmered, became shadow, became a portal, swirling darkness that smelled like midnight and ozone. Trust me, he said. Thea looked back, saw the basilica doors shudder, hunters with battering rams. She looked at the portal, at Cassian, at the impossible choice between the known and the unknown. She chose unknown. She stepped through. The sensation was like falling and flying at the same time. Darkness, cold. Then, light, wind, the smell of salt air. They were standing on the observation deck of the Space Needle. Seattle spread below them, lights like fallen stars, the water black and endless, the city beautiful and terrible and alive. Thea looked at Cassian. How? Shadow portals, he said, only work during the blood moon, and they're exhausting. He swayed, caught himself on the railing. His burns were still healing. The trials had weakened him. The portal had drained what was left. We need to get you somewhere safe, Thea said. We need to get somewhere they'll never look. He pulled out his phone, dialed a number. Vesper, South Hangar, 10 minutes. He hung up, looked at Thea. Do you trust me? With my life. Good, because we're leaving Seattle. Tonight. Right now. Below them, sirens, police, fire department, hunters pretending to be authorities. The basilica was discovered. The convergence interrupted, but Cassian was smiling. What? Thea asked. You saved them, he said. A human saved a room full of vampires. They'll never forget that. Neither will I. He pulled her close, kissed her. His lips were still cool, but warming. Becoming more human every day as the serum worked. Where are we going? Thea asked. The San Juan Islands. I have an estate, hidden, warded. The hunters won't find it. An estate? A few buildings, some land. It's modest. Thea laughed. Cassian Ravencroft, I've learned never to trust your definition of modest. The helicopter landed 2 hours later on a private pad on San Juan Island. Thea had never been in a helicopter before. Had never seen Seattle from the air, glittering like a jewel. Had never imagined she'd be fleeing hunters with a vampire king who'd given up immortality for her. The Ravencroft estate wasn't modest. It was a compound. Multiple buildings arranged around a central courtyard, stone and glass and modern architecture that somehow blended with the natural landscape. Gardens, fountains, the ocean crashing against cliffs in the distance. Modest, Thea said dryly as they landed. For a 500-year-old vampire it is, Cassian replied. Vesper was waiting. He'd arrived earlier, shadow portal probably, and had assembled the staff. 20 people, vampires and humans, working together. They bowed when Cassian stepped out of the helicopter. Not mocking, genuine respect. Welcome home, sire, they said in unison. Cassian helped Thea out. She still wore the green dress, now stained with CO2 residue and dirt and her husband's blood. She looked like she'd survived a war. She had. Everyone, Cassian said. This is Thea, my wife, your queen. More bows, deeper. Thea felt ridiculous. She was a waitress, an unemployed accountant. She wasn't a queen. But then she remembered the basilica, the trials, the UV grenade, the fire extinguisher. Maybe she was. They were led to the main house, grand, but comfortable, more home than palace. Vesper showed them to a suite, massive bedroom, fireplace, windows overlooking the ocean. The council has convened remotely, Vesper said to Cassian. They want to discuss the hunter threat. Give me an hour, Cassian said. I need to... He gestured vaguely at his burned back. Of course, sire. Vesper bowed, left them alone. Thea helped Cassian out of his ruined shirt. The burns were healing but still raw. She found medical supplies in the bathroom, silver nitrate, gauze, antiseptic that smelled wrong. She cleaned the wounds gently. Cassian flinched but didn't complain. Tell me everything, Thea said. No more secrets. I want the whole truth. So he told her. He'd been born in 1447 in Florence, son of a minor noble, grew up during the Italian Renaissance, learned art, politics, war. In 1478, during a battle, he'd been mortally wounded, left for dead on a battlefield. A vampire had found him, turned him, gave him a choice, die human or live forever. He'd chosen forever. For 547 years he'd lived, seen empires rise, watched them fall. He'd built wealth, power, ruled the night court, become king. But he'd been alone. Every human he'd loved had aged and died. Every vampire companion had wanted something from him. Power, blood, protection. 60 years ago, Cassian said, I started the humility trials. Every 50 years, I take a serum that makes me mortal. Temporarily. I seal my powers, my wealth. I go into the human world with nothing. Live as the lowest of society to remember what it means to be human. Why, Thea, she asked. Because power corrupts. Immortality makes you forget. I wanted to remember kindness, struggle, hope, the things that make humans beautiful. How many trials have you done? 11. You're the 11th. He turned to face her. But you're the first one where I fell in love. The first time I met someone who saw me, not the king or the monster. Just me. And the serum? It's permanent now. I've been taking it for 3 months. It's aging me, slowly. In 50 years, I'll be mortal. Completely. I'll die like any human. No immortality, no second chances. Thea's hands shook. You gave up forever for 50 years. I gave up existence for life, he corrected. There's a difference. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box, opened it. Inside, a ring. Obsidian and silver, simple. Beautiful. I know I already married you, Cassian said, but that was when I was a janitor. This is me as a king asking again. Thea Morven, will you be my queen? Not just in name, in truth. Will you help me rule? Help me change what it means to be a vampire in this world? Help me build something better? Thea looked at the ring, at him, at the impossible man offering her an impossible life. Yes, she said. He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. Then he pulled her into his arms and held her. Just held her. Two people who'd survived trials, mockery, hunters, and the weight of centuries. Two people who'd chosen each other. What happens now? Thea asked. Now, Cassian smiled against her hair. Now we face the council, the hunters, the world that thinks we're inane, and we prove them wrong. Together? Always together. Outside, the blood moon set. Dawn approached. The convergence was over. But for Thea and Cassian, everything was just beginning. An hour later, cleaned and changed, they descended to the estate's war room. Not a euphemism, an actual war room. Maps, computer screens, Satellite feeds. The council appeared on monitors. Video conference across continents. Althea's face filled the largest screen. The hunters found the basilica. We sealed it before they breached. But they know. They know about the convergence, about our numbers, about you. Let them know, Cassian said. He sat at the head of the table. Thea beside him. Equal. I'm done hiding. They'll come for you, for all of us. Then we'll be ready. He looked at Thea. My wife has an idea. Thea stood, walked to the central display. She'd been thinking about this since the helicopter ride, analyzing, planning, using the skills that made her Forbes 30 under 30. You can't fight the hunters with violence, she said. They want you to. They want a war. It justifies their existence. What do you propose? Althea asked. We expose them. Their funding, their leadership, their illegal weapons. Thea pulled a USB drive from her pocket. I copied the Basilica's financial records before we left. 600 years of transactions. But more importantly, I saw something. Cross-referenced accounts. The hunters are funded by shell corporations. Corporations I can trace. She plugged the USB into the system. Numbers filled the screens. Here, she said, pointing, and here, and here. The Van Helsing order is funded by 17 billionaires. Old money families, people who profit from keeping vampires as monsters. If we expose them, they lose legitimacy, Vesper finished. The public turns against them. Exactly. Thea looked at the council. You've been fighting this war with fangs and shadows. But I'm an accountant. I fight with numbers. Let me do what I do best. Silence. The council members looked at each other, then at Cassian. She's brilliant, Althea said. Cassian, your mortal is brilliant. I know, he said quietly, proudly. Very well, Althea decided. Thea Ravencroft, you have the council's resources. Expose them. Show the world who the real monsters are. The screens went dark. Meeting adjourned. Thea sat down. Her hands were shaking. Adrenaline, fear, excitement. You just declared war on some of the most powerful people on Earth, Cassian said. I know. They'll come after you. I know. You could die. I know. She looked at him. But I married a vampire king who gave up immortality for me. The least I can do is fight for our future. Cassian laughed, pulled her into his lap, kissed her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I chose well, he murmured against her lips. Yes, she agreed. You did. Outside, the sun rose over the San Juan Islands. A new day, a new battle. But Thea wasn't afraid. She'd survived poverty, humiliation, trials, UV grenades. She could survive anything as long as she had him. 4 months after the convergence, Thea Ravencroft sat in an office that didn't exist on any public map. The room was carved from the rock beneath the Ravencroft estate. Computer servers hummed. Screens covered every wall, displaying financial data, shell corporation networks, numbered accounts in countries that asked no questions. Thea had spent 123 days doing what she did best, following the money. The Van Helsing order thought they were hidden, thought their funding was untraceable. They'd been careful. 17 layers of shell corporations, accounts spread across 43 countries, transactions designed to look like legitimate business. But they'd made one mistake. They'd underestimated an accountant with a photographic memory and nothing to lose. Thea had found the pattern. A single recurring transaction, $7,000, transferred on the 15th of every month, from 17 different sources, all ending in the same place, a Swiss account registered to K. Thorne. Commander Cade Thorne, the hunter who'd led the raid on the Obsidian Basilica, $119,000 per month, $1.4 million per year, paid to one man to exterminate vampires. But the sources, that's where it got interesting. Thea pulled up the list on her main screen, 17 names, old money, American aristocracy, people whose ancestors had signed the Constitution, built railroads, owned plantations, people who profited from keeping vampires as monsters. She'd spent 4 months building the case, tracing every transaction, documenting every payment, creating an evidence file so airtight even the FBI couldn't ignore it. Now she just needed to make it public. You should eat something, Cassian said from the doorway. Thea looked up. Her husband leaned against the frame, wearing jeans and a sweater that made him look almost human. His hair had grown longer, little touches of silver at the temples, the serum working, aging him slowly toward mortality. He'd never looked more beautiful. I'm not hungry, Thea said. I'm close. So close. You've been saying that for a week. This time I mean it. She gestured at the screens. I have everything. Every payment, every transaction, every name, the entire network. Cashin walked to her desk, looked at the data, whistled low. These people, Thea, some of them are senators, CEOs. They have resources. So do I. She met his eyes. I have the truth. He smiled, cupped her face, kissed her forehead. When? Tomorrow. I've scheduled a press conference. Press conference? The Seattle Times, the Washington Post, CNN. I sent them preliminary data. They know it's real. They'll be there. Thea, these people will come after you. Let them. She stood, took his hands. You gave up immortality for me. I can give up safety for us. A knock on the door. Vesper entered, carrying a tablet. His expression was grim. Sire, my lady, you need to see this. He handed Thea the tablet. On screen, an email from an address she recognized. Genevieve Ashford. The subject line, I'm sorry, please help. Thea's finger hovered over the message. Cassian's hand covered hers. It could be a trap, he said. I know. She opened it anyway. The message was brief. Thea, I know I have no right to ask, but Dorian is in trouble. Real trouble. He's involved with the hunters. Gave them information. Now they want more. He's scared. Says they'll kill him if he doesn't deliver you. I tried to stop him, but he won't listen. Please, he's my brother. I know you have no reason to help, but I'm begging. Meet me at the old Ashford Bank Vault. 8 p.m. tonight. I'll explain everything. Ye. Thea read it twice. Looked at Cassian. It's definitely a trap, she said. Definitely. I'm going anyway. I know, he sighed. I'm coming with you. No. Thea stood, walked to the weapons cabinet. Yes, they had a weapons cabinet now, and pulled out a small device. GPS tracker. I go alone. If it's a trap, I need to be the bait. But you'll know where I am. You can follow. Thea. Cassian. If I'm going to be a queen, I need to be able to handle threats, not hide behind my husband. She clipped the tracker to her bracelet. Besides, I have a plan. What plan? She smiled. Trust me. The old Ashford Bank building sat empty on 2nd Avenue, abandoned since 2019 when the company moved to their glass tower downtown. The building was scheduled for demolition. Asbestos, lead paint, foundation issues. No one came here anymore. Perfect place for an ambush. Thea arrived at 7:55 p.m., 5 minutes early. The front doors were chained, but a side entrance hung open. Convenient. She checked her phone. The tracker was active. Cassian could see her location. Vesper was on standby. The entire estate security team was ready. She was as prepared as she could be. She walked inside. The lobby was stripped. Tiles torn up. Walls gutted. Her footsteps echoed. Above, fluorescent lights flickered. Half of them dead. The ones that worked cast sickly yellow shadows. Genevieve, Thea called. No answer. She walked deeper, past the old teller windows, toward the back, toward the vault. The vault door stood open. Heavy steel, 3 feet thick, the kind of door that could survive a nuclear blast. Inside the vault, Genevieve. She sat on the floor, hands tied behind her back, tape over her mouth. Her eyes were wide, terrified. Tears streaked her makeup. Genevieve, Thea ran forward. Strong hands grabbed her from behind, spun her around, slammed her against the vault wall. Commander Cade Thorne, 50 years old, scarred face, dead eyes. He wore tactical gear, military grade, a pistol on his hip, knife on his thigh, and in his hand, a syringe. Mrs. Ravencroft, he said, thank you for coming. He jabbed the syringe into her neck, pressed the plunger. Fire. That's what it felt like. Liquid fire spreading through her veins. Thea tried to scream, but her throat closed. Her legs gave out. She collapsed. Thorne caught her, dragged her into the vault, propped her against the wall next to Genevieve. Vervain and garlic extract, he explained, almost conversational, doesn't hurt humans much, but it masks your scent. Your vampire husband won't be able to track you, not for a few hours anyway. He pulled out zip ties, bound Thea's wrists behind her back, checked the restraints on Genevieve. Satisfied, he stood. Now we wait, he said. Thea's mind was spinning. The drug made everything fuzzy, but she forced herself to think, to plan. The tracker, the GPS tracker on her bracelet. It would still work. Cassian would know she was here. He'd come. But Thorne knew that too. This was a trap for both of them. How much? Thea managed to say. Her tongue felt thick. How much did they pay you? To kill vampires? Thorne smiled. 1.4 million a year, plus bonuses for high-value targets. Your husband, for example, he's worth 10 million. Dead. You won't kill him. No, you will. He pulled a laptop from a bag near the door, set it up on an old desk. The screen showed camera feed, live, broadcasting. We're streaming this, Thorne said, to vampire networks worldwide. Your husband will see. He'll come, and when he does, we will be ready. He pulled out a detonator. This vault is rigged, 40 pounds of C4, mixed with silver nitrate. When it explodes, it'll vaporize everything in a 100-foot radius, including your king. Thea's blood went cold. You'll kill yourself too. I'm willing to die to rid the world of monsters. Thorne looked at the camera, pressed a button. The red light came on. They were live. Good evening, he said to the camera. My name is Commander Cade Thorne. I lead the Van Helsing Order. And tonight I have a message for Cassian Ravencroft, the so-called Vampire King. He grabbed Thea, dragged her into frame. Then Genevieve. We have your wife, and we have this traitor, he shoved Genevieve. The human who helped you at the convergence. You have 1 hour, come alone. No guards, no tricks, or we detonate. They die, you die. Everyone within 100 feet dies. He held up a timer, set it. 59 minutes, 58, 57. The countdown began. At the Ravencroft estate, alarms blared. Cassian stood in the security room watching the live feed, watching his wife bound and drugged, watching the timer count down. Vesper stood beside him. It's a trap, sire. The building is rigged. If you go, I'm going. You'll die. Then I die. Cassian grabbed his coat. I'm not letting her. Wait, Vesper pointed at the screen. Look. On the feed, Thea was moving, subtly, her hands bound behind her back. She was doing something. Cassian leaned closer. Watched. Thea's fingers worked at the zip ties. She'd positioned herself near a piece of broken tile. Sharp edge. She was sawing through the plastic, slowly, so Thorne wouldn't notice. She caught the camera angle, looked directly at it, mouthed 2 words, trust me. Then she mouthed numbers, 3, 5, 8. Cassian's eyes widened. She's giving me the detonator frequency. She wants me to jam the signal. Can we? Vesper asked. Get me a radio engineer. Now. 30 minutes left on the clock. Thea had cut through the zip ties. Her hands were free, but she kept them behind her back. Pretending, waiting. Thorne was pacing, checking his phone, watching the camera feed, waiting for Cassian to arrive. Genevieve sat beside Thea, still gagged, still terrified. But she'd noticed Thea's hands, noticed she was free. Thea looked at her, mouthed, when I move, run. Genevieve nodded, barely. Thorne's phone buzzed. He answered, yeah? A voice on the other end, male, urgent. Thea couldn't hear the words. What do you mean he's not coming? Thorne demanded. He has to. Footsteps, from outside the vault, heavy, multiple people. Thorne spun, raised his pistol. Who's? The vault door swung further open. A figure stepped through. Dorian Ashford. He looked terrible, gaunt, haunted, dark circles under his eyes. He wore an expensive suit that hung on him like a shroud. Dorian, Genevieve said through the tape, her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, Dorian said to his sister. Jen, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they'd... He looked at Thorne. You said you'd just use her as leverage. You said you wouldn't hurt her. Plans changed, Thorne said. Aw. No, Dorian's voice shook. Let her go. I brought you something better. He pulled a USB drive from his pocket. Security codes? For the Ravencroft estate, full layout, guard rotations, everything. Thorne considered. And in exchange? You let Genevieve go. You take Thea. The Vampire King will still come for his wife. You still get your trap. Dorian, no! Genevieve screamed through the tape. I'm saving you, Dorian said. Tears ran down his face. Jen, I've done terrible things. I've hurt people, destroyed lives, but I can't let you die for my mistakes. He looked at Thea. I'm sorry for everything. The wedding, the slideshow, all of it. You didn't deserve it. Then don't do this, Thea said quietly. Dorian, there's another way. No, there isn't. He handed the USB to Thorne. Let my sister go. Thorne looked at the drive, at Dorian, at Genevieve, making calculations. Fine, he said. He walked to Genevieve, cut her restraints, ripped off the tape. Genevieve stumbled to her feet, ran to Dorian, hit him. once, hard across the face. You idiot! You absolute idiot! Then she hugged him, sobbed into his chest. Thorne raised his pistol, aimed at both of them. Time's up, both of you, out, now. Dorian pulled Genevieve toward the door. She resisted. I'm not leaving. Go, Thea said. Genevieve, go. Their eyes met. Years of history in that look. Friendship, betrayal, forgiveness, understanding. I'm sorry, Genevieve whispered. I know, Thea said. Dorian dragged his sister out. Their footsteps faded, disappeared. Thorne turned back to Thea. Now, where were we? Thea's hands came out from behind her back. Free. She'd been counting on this, on Thorne being distracted, on having one moment. This was it. She grabbed the broken tile she'd been sawing the zip ties with. Sharp, jagged. She threw it. Not at Thorne, at the laptop. The tile hit the screen, shattered it. The live feed went dark. Thorne roared, spun, raised his gun. Thea was already moving. She'd spent 4 months training with Vesper, learning how to fight, how to survive, how to use an opponent's weight against them. She ducked under Thorne's arm, grabbed the detonator from the desk, ran out of the vault, into the gutted lobby, her feet pounding on broken tile. Behind her, gunshots, bullets sparking off the floor, off the walls. She ran toward the front entrance. The chain doors, she'd have to break through. The chains exploded, not from gunfire, from force, supernatural force. Cassian stood in the doorway, eyes crimson, shadows writhing around him. Fangs descended. Thea, he shouted, down! She dropped, slid across the floor. Cassian moved, too fast to see. One moment at the door, the next he was on Thorne. No mercy, no hesitation. He grabbed the hunter by the throat, lifted him off the ground. You touched my wife, Cassian said. His voice was layered, ancient, terrible. You drugged her, bound her, threatened to kill her. Do it, Thorne gasped. Kill me. Prove you're the monster. Cassian's hand tightened. Thorne's face turned purple. His feet kicked, desperate. Cassian, Thea's voice. She'd stood, walked to him, placed a hand on his arm. Don't. He tried to kill you. And he failed. Because I outsmarted him. Because you taught me I was strong enough. She looked at Thorne. Don't let him win. Don't become the monster he thinks you are. Cassian stared at her. The crimson in his eyes flickered, faded, gray returning. He threw Thorne across the room. The hunter hit the wall, crumpled, unconscious but alive. Vesper appeared in the doorway. With police. Actual police this time. Not hunters in disguise. We jammed the detonator frequency, Vesper explained, and we called the authorities. Commander Thorne is wanted for domestic terrorism in 6 states. The police moved in, handcuffed Thorne, raid him his rights. Thea handed the detonator to one of the officers. The vault is rigged, C4 and silver nitrate. You'll need a bomb squad. The officer took it, looked at her. You're Thea Ravencroft? Yes. We got your evidence file, the one about the Van Helsing order funding. It's being investigated. Federal level. Good, Thea said. Then her legs gave out. Cassian caught her. Always. He'd always catch her. I've got you, he murmured. I've got you. She rested her head against his chest, heard his heart, beating, human, mortal. I saved myself first, she whispered. I know. I saw. You were magnificent. But I'm really glad you showed up anyway. He laughed, kissed her hair. Always. I'll always show up for you. Outside, sirens, ambulances, news crews. The story was breaking. Vampire King's wife escapes hunter trap. Evidence of illegal funding exposed. Commander arrested. The world was about to change. Victory came in waves. First wave, the courthouse. Pierce County Superior Court. United States versus Cade Thorne. Thea sat in the gallery, Cassian beside her, Genevieve 3 rows back. Dorian next to his sister, clean-shaven, sober, a different man than he'd been 6 months ago. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. Commander Thorne orchestrated terrorist activities, attempted murder, conspiracy. The defense has no rebuttal. The defense attorney stood, sat back down, nothing to say. The judge, an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, looked at Thorne. You endangered lives, destroyed property, attempted to murder innocent people, all in the name of a cause you claim is righteous. But there is no righteousness in terror. She slammed the gavel. 30 years, federal maximum security, no parole. The courtroom erupted. Applause, cheers. Thea didn't cheer. She just watched as Thorne was led away in chains. He looked at her once, hatred in his eyes, but also something else. Fear. He was afraid of her. The accountant who'd destroyed his entire operation with a spreadsheet and a USB drive. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Mrs. Ravencroft, how do you feel about the verdict? Thea stopped, faced the cameras, Cassian beside her, supporting but not speaking. This was her moment. I feel grateful, she said. Grateful that justice was served. Grateful that the truth came out. Commander Thorne was funded by 17 wealthy individuals who wanted to use fear as a weapon. Those people are being investigated. Their assets frozen. Their power stripped. Is it true you're the one who exposed them? A reporter asked. I'm an accountant, Thea said simply. I follow the money. The money led to the truth. And your husband? The Vampire King allegations? Cassian stepped forward, casually, draped an arm around Thea's shoulders. I'm a businessman, he said. I own Ravencroft Industries. I employ 3,000 people. And yes, I married a brilliant woman who used to serve coffee and now serves justice. Any other questions? The reporters laughed. The tension broke. They'd gotten their story. The terror suspect convicted. The unlikely couple victorious. Thea and Cassian walked away. Genevieve caught up with them at the car. Thank you, she said, for testifying, for helping Dorian's case. Thea had testified that Dorian helped save her life, that he'd chosen his sister over the hunters, that he deserved a second chance. He's doing community service instead of prison, Genevieve continued. 3 years, but he's free, and it's because of you. It's because of him, Thea corrected. He made the right choice, finally. Genevieve nodded, hesitated, then said, I'm starting at your foundation next week, the Ravencroft Foundation for Financial Rehabilitation. As a volunteer, I know I have to earn. You don't have to earn anything, Thea said. Just show up, help people. That's enough. Genevieve smiled, thin, genuine. I will. She left. Dorian was waiting by a bus stop. He'd sold his car, paid off his debts, was rebuilding his life from nothing. Thea watched them go, brother and sister, broken people trying to piece themselves back together. You gave them a second chance, Cassian said. Everyone deserves one, Thea replied, even people who don't deserve it. 1 month later, the grand reopening of Ashford Banking, except it wasn't Ashford anymore. The building's facade had been stripped, redesigned, modern, clean. The name carved in stone above the entrance, Ravencroft Holdings. Thea stood on the steps, Cassian beside her. A ribbon stretched across the entrance. Red, symbolic. 500 people had gathered. Employees, investors, press, city officials. The mayor handed Thea the scissors. Mrs. Ravencroft, would you like to do the honors? Actually, Thea said, I'd like to say a few words first. She faced the crowd. Her hands didn't shake anymore. Hadn't shaken in months. She'd learned her worth. 6 months ago, she began, I was a waitress, unemployed, bankrupt. I served coffee to people who looked through me like I was furniture. I was told I was worthless, a failure, a charity case marrying down. Murmurs in the crowd. Some people remembered. Some had been at the wedding. Today, I'm co-CEO of a company worth $470 million. I didn't get here through luck or marriage. I got here because I have a skill. I'm very good with numbers, very good at seeing patterns other people miss. She gestured to the building. Ravencroft Holdings will be different from Ashford Banking. We're hiring from diverse backgrounds, people without degrees, people with criminal records who deserve second chances, people the world has written off. Because I know what it's like to be written off. And I know that talent has nothing to do with where you start. Applause, loud, genuine. We're also establishing a scholarship fund, full ride to college for students from bankrupt families, named after my mother who taught me that my mind is my power. Thea's voice caught. She cleared her throat, continued. The world judges by money, by status, by who your parents were, but that's not what makes someone valuable. What makes you valuable is how you treat people when you have nothing, how you fight when everyone counts you out, how you rise. She looked at Cassian. He was smiling, proud. His hair had more silver now, lines appearing at the corners of his eyes. Aging, human, beautiful. I married a janitor, Thea said, turning back to the crowd. And I'd do it again because he saw me when no one else did. And together, we built this. She cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered. Cameras flashed. The doors opened, employees filed in. A new era beginning. Inside, Thea walked the halls. Her halls now. She passed the executive bathroom where Cassian used to clean, the boardroom where Dorian used to mock him, the office that used to belong to the CEO who'd bowed in fear at the gala. It all belonged to her now, not through cruelty, not through revenge, through intelligence, through work, through proving every single person who'd underestimated her wrong. 2 months later, the Morvan Foundation Gala, named after Thea's mother, held at the Four Seasons, 500 guests. Tickets were $5,000 each, sold out, all proceeds going to families rebuilding from bankruptcy. Thea wore a gown, black, simple, elegant, the obsidian and silver ring on her finger, the only jewelry she needed. Cassian wore a tuxedo, custom made. He looked like a king, walked like a man, the balance perfect. They entered the ballroom together. Applause, standing ovation. Not for him, for her. Thea Ravencroft, the woman who'd gone from waitress to CEO, from humiliated bride to queen, from powerless to unstoppable. She gave a speech, talked about her father, his bankruptcy, his shame, his death from a heart attack 6 months after losing everything. He thought he was worthless when the money was gone, Thea said. But he wasn't. He was a good man who made a bad investment, that's all. It didn't define him. It doesn't define anyone. She unveiled the foundation's first scholarship recipients, 20 students, full rides, all from bankrupt families. One of them was a girl, 17, brilliant, loved math, reminded Thea of herself at that age. The girl hugged Thea, whispered, "Thank you. You saved my life." "No," Thea said. "You saved your own life. I just gave you the tools." The gala continued. Dancing, celebration. At one point, Thea found herself on the balcony, alone looking out at Seattle, the city that had broken her, the city she'd conquered. "Penny for your thoughts," Cassian said, joining her. "Just remembering," Thea said. "The wedding, the community center, Dorian's slideshow. Regrets?" "Not even one." She turned to him. "You gave up immortality. I gave up normal. We're even." "We're better than even," he said. Pulled her close, swayed with her to the music drifting from inside. "We're extraordinary." They danced on the balcony, under the stars, two people who'd chosen each other against all odds. Inside the ballroom in the back row, someone watched. Dorian Ashford. He'd been invited, hadn't expected to be, but Thea had insisted. He watched her dance with the man she'd chosen, the man Dorian had mocked, the man who'd turned out to be everything Dorian wasn't. Genevieve found him, stood beside her brother. "She forgave us," Genevieve said quietly. "She's better than us," Dorian replied. "So let's be better. Let's earn it." Dorian nodded. They left together, to volunteer, to work, to rebuild. Some people couldn't be saved, but some could. Thea believed that, so she kept giving chances. 4 months after the gala, the Ravencroft estate, San Juan Island, the library, Thea sat at a desk made of reclaimed wood. The room around her was lined with books, some new, some centuries old. Cassian's collection mixed with hers. She reviewed foundation reports. 147 families helped. 3,000 jobs created through Ravencroft Holdings. 85 scholarships awarded. Numbers. Good numbers. The kind that made her accountant heart happy. On the desk, her mother's letter. The one she'd found in the box of keepsakes years ago. "Your mind is your power. Never let them make you small." Thea touched the paper, worn, faded, but the words still clear. "I didn't, Mom," she whispered. "I didn't let them." Cassian entered, carrying tea. He set a cup beside her, Earl Grey, her favorite. His hair was more silver than dark now, the serum working. In him, lines around his eyes. On his forehead, beautiful lines, human lines. In 50 years, he'd be gone, dead, mortal, lost to her. But right now, he was here, alive, hers. "University called," Cassian said. "Your PhD committee approved your dissertation. The one about forensic accounting and nonprofit fraud prevention? That's the one. Dr. Ravencroft has a nice ring to it." Thea smiled. She'd enrolled at University of Washington 6 months ago, full-time student while running a company. It was insane, but she'd never felt more alive. "The council wants to visit next month," Cassian continued. "Althea specifically. She wants to discuss something. Won't say what. Let me guess. She wants me to teach other vampires about modern finance." "How did you—" "Because I'm very smart, and she knows it." Thea stood, walked to the window. The ocean stretched endless, gray-blue, cold, perfect. Do you miss it? Artie asked. Immortality, the power, being unkillable. Cassian joined her at the window, took her hand. Every day, her heart sank. But then, he continued, I look at you, at what we've built, at the life we're living, and I realize immortality is just existence. This is so, he gestured around them at the foundation, at their life. This is living, and I'll take 50 years of living over 5,000 of existing. He turned her to face him, cupped her face. You were worthless to them, to Dorian, to Genevieve, to everyone who judged you by your bank account. But you were priceless to me, you still are. I love you, Thea said. Simple, true. I love you more, Cassian replied. Impossible, I'm very competitive. He laughed, kissed her. She tasted tea and humanity and the future they were building together. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small folder, old, leather-bound. What is it? Thea asked. A choice, he said. Before I met you, I commissioned a group of witches to create 2 serums. You know about the mortality serum, the one I've been taking, the one that's aging me toward death. Yes, there's another one. He opened the folder, inside the files, two of them, one gold, one silver. The golden one reverses the mortality serum, returns me to full vampire. Immortality, power, everything I was. And the silver one? Transforms a human into a vampire, painlessly, with full control. No loss of humanity. Thea stared at the vials, understanding dawning. I'm giving you the choice, Cassian said. I can become immortal again. Or you can become immortal with me. Or we stay as we are. Human, mortal, together for 50 years and then gone. What do you want? Thea asked. I want you to be happy. I want you to live the life you choose, not the life I impose. Thea picked up the silver vial, held it to the light. Immortality. Forever. She'd never age, never die. She could run the foundation for centuries, help millions of people, change the world over and over. Or she could live 50 years, grow old, but die human, die by herself. I choose mortality, she said. Set the vial down. I choose 50 years with you as humans, as equals. Are you sure? Cassian, you taught me something. Immortality is just time. Living is what you do with it. I'd rather have 50 years of meaning than 5,000 of existence. He picked up both vials, walked to the fireplace, threw them in. The glass shattered. The liquids hissed, evaporated, gone forever. No more choices, he said. No more second guessing. We're human. We're mortal. We're together. Always together, Thea agreed. They stood at the window, watched the ocean, planned their future, a future measured in decades, not centuries, but a future filled with love, purpose, and the quiet triumph of 2 people who'd chosen each other against impossible odds. The Seattle Times business section. Front page. Ravencroft Holdings announces unprecedented profit-sharing plan. In a move that shocked Wall Street, Ravencroft Holdings CEO Thea Ravencroft announced today that the company will share 40% of annual profits with employees. The plan includes janitors, entry-level staff, and contracted workers. Our success is built on their labor, Mrs. Ravencroft stated. It's only fair they share in the rewards. Industry analysts predict the move will pressure other companies to follow suit. Ravencroft Holdings has been profitable for 5 consecutive quarters since its rebrand from Ashford Banking. Genevieve folded the newspaper, set it on the desk in her small office at the Ravencroft Foundation. She'd been working there for 7 months. Started as a volunteer. Earned a paid position after 6 months. Entry level, answering phones, filing paperwork. She'd never been happier. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dorian. Community service done. 3 years complete. Coffee? She smiled. Texted back, my treat. Her brother had changed, really changed. He worked construction now, manual labor, making barely above minimum wage, rebuilding his life brick by brick. Some people said he'd never recover from the humiliation. Genevieve knew better. Recovery wasn't about returning to what you were. It was about becoming something better. In Portland, Oregon, in a small bookstore called Second Chances, Dorian Ashford shelved books. Fiction section, alphabetical order, mindless work, peaceful work. A customer approached. Older woman, kind eyes. Excuse me, do you have anything by Thea Ravencroft? The memoir, Dorian asked. From bankruptcy to billions, it's on the bestseller wall. He walked the woman to the display. There it was, Thea's book, her face on the cover, confident, powerful. The woman she'd always been, but the world had finally noticed. She's inspiring, the customer said. My daughter lost everything in the 2022 crash. Reading this gave her hope. It gave me hope too, Dorian said quietly. The woman bought the book. Left. Dorian stood alone in front of the display, staring at the cover, at the woman he'd mocked, humiliated, tried to destroy, the woman who'd saved his sister, testified for him, gave him a second chance he didn't deserve. He pulled out his phone, typed a message to Thea. Thank you for everything. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm trying to deserve it. D. He hesitated, almost deleted it, then pressed send. 3 minutes later, a response. You're doing great, Dorian. Keep going. T, he cried, right there in the bookstore. Tears of gratitude, of relief, of hope. So, at the Ravencroft estate, Thea set down her phone. Cassian looked up from the book he was reading. Dorian? Yeah, he's coming around. People can change, Thea said, if they want to. Outside, the sun set over the Pacific. Inside, a former waitress and a former king planned their next move. 5 years later, Thea stood on a stage at the Ravencroft Foundation's annual gala. Her hair had a few strands of gray now. 32 years old, lines beginning at the corners of her eyes. Beautiful lines, earned lines. Cassian sat in the front row, more silver than dark now, but still strong, still hers. 5 years ago, Thea said to the crowd of 700 guests, I was mocked for marrying a poor man. People said I was making a mistake, marrying down, throwing my life away. She smiled, looked at Cassian. They were wrong. I married the richest man I've ever known. Rich in kindness, in integrity, in love. Applause, ornaments. Tonight, I'm proud to announce that the Ravencroft Foundation has helped over 10,000 families rebuild from bankruptcy. We've awarded 500 scholarships. We've created 15,000 jobs. And we're just getting started. Standing ovation. Thea stepped off the stage. Cassian met her, took her hand. They walked out together, past the cameras, past the applause, into the night. In the car, heading home, Thea rested her head on Cassian's shoulder. They said I was worthless, she murmured. They were blind, Cassian replied. They said you were just a janitor. They were fools, Thea laughed. We proved them wrong. We proved them irrelevant, Cassian corrected. Their opinions never mattered, only ours did. The car drove through Seattle, past the diner where she'd worked, past the community center where they'd married, past the Ashford, now Ravencroft building, past her entire history, her humiliation, her rise, her triumph. Thea Morven had started with nothing, had been told she was nothing, had believed for a moment that she was nothing. But she'd been wrong. She'd always been something. The world just hadn't been paying attention. Now it was, and she wasn't done yet, not even close.